Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Indie Insights for this wonderful Monday. We have got our very, very good friends and good partners at Nine here today, the biggest media organisation in Australia. And with that comes a lot of strength and power. And see what I just did that I put empowered into my sentence. When it comes into looking into the future, we've got Anthony Mogo, industry legend, who will be kicking things off and doing a proper introduction. And also Steve will be going through the full deck. Now, what the guys do here at Power Predicts is they take about 6 to 12 months of research of all the best predictions from all over the world. And they produce a trends document for 2024. It is, and I've seen a little glimpse of it before, it is bloody good. It's interesting. And I think you'll get a lot out of it. I'll hand over to Mogo to take things over, and I'll keep my big mouth shut. Over to you, mate.
Thank you, Sam, for that very warm introduction. Hello, everyone. Thanks, IMAA, for having us, and thanks, everyone, for tuning in. As Sam said, I'm Anthony Mogensen. Everyone calls me Mogo for anyone I hadn't met, and I'm the Group Business Director at Nine, looking after the very wonderful world of indies. And with me is Steve Caunce. Steve is from Nine Powered as Sydney's Head of Strategy. So just for anyone that's not familiar with Powered are really the team that kind of glue our vast ecosystem together. Powered are known as the home of big ideas, and they cover quite a vast array of functions, from content creation, campaign management, content integration, measurement and effectiveness, and strategy and insights, and that's just to name a few. And so, as I say, Steve is Sydney's Head of Strategy, and he's going to take you through this body of work that's known as Powered Predicts. So, as Sam said, it's the culmination of a body of research that looks at trends we believe will influence advertisers this year. So there are 9 trends, which is on brand for Nine, of course. See what we did there. They're all different. They're drawn from a pretty broad range of sources, and they reflect changes from consumers, changes in consumer motivations, shifts in the market, and some innovations from around the world. So Steve will take you through all of that and some actionable insights and the business implications that can be applied to advertisers. Before I hand over to Steve and kick off, Sam and the team at IMAA told me this is not a sales forum. So this is the first one I've been to. I probably won't be invited back, but I'm going to do a very, very quick gratuitous sales plug, of course, for the Olympics, which I'm sure you're all aware is on Nine, kicks off late July. The reason I wanted to throw this in is because we are getting a lot of incoming around the Olympics. So for everyone on the call, we've been in market with our big partners and sponsors. They are locked in. The second phase in our strategy, taking the Olympics to market, packages. There's 4 of them that range from $5 million down to $1.5 million. And then the third phase is next week we'll go to market with casual buying. So for anyone on the call that is interested in the Olympics over that period, just reach out to your favourite contact at Nine and we can shape something up for you. Apologies, Sam, the IMAA team, for that gratuitous sales plug. Thought I'd take the opportunity, couldn't help myself. Without further ado, though, I'll hand over to Steve.
Well done, mate.
Thanks, Margot. Thanks, Sam. So yeah, Power Predicts. It's been around for about 4 years. We started it. It was a really sort of small-scale project, and it's just gained momentum over the year. It seems a lot of our agency friends and particularly in strategists and planning teams seem to find it quite useful. And really what we're trying to do is challenge the norm a little bit, provide a new perspective, hopefully inspire new ways of looking at things and new ways of thinking about things and doing things. Hopefully to help you guys with the work that you do by providing sort of tangible business implications and strategic ways in or directions or approaches, and really just start a bit of a dialogue around these cultural shifts. I mean, we're living in a very, and you don't need me to tell you this, we're living in a very unsettled world at the moment. And obviously this is having quite extreme implications as to consumer behavior, and as well as how brands and their expectations of brands. So on that note, we'll get straight into it. So forecasting isn't an easy thing to do, no matter who does it, how much data we analyze, how many trends we consider. There are way too many variables that can change the trajectory of what might have seemed a rock solid conclusion. But as Sam alluded to, we've done an analysis of all the major trend reports. We do it every year, and the likes of Ogilvy, Edelman, Wunderman Thompson, Stylus, Future Lab, Walk, all of them. So hopefully you guys don't have to do that work. But with 4 years worth of data and an ever evolving trends tracker, all of the trends that you're about to see are grounded in genuine consumer insight. Everything is backed up quantitatively through surveys with our own audiences, through our own idea exchange. Idea exchange is essentially an audience panel of listeners, fans, watchers, readers from across the entire network. There's about 30,000 of them, and we survey them every couple of weeks, and we usually get about 3,000 respondents per survey, so they're a very engaged bunch. Being at Nine, also we have the privilege of being able to tap into the informed opinions of editors, publishers and hosts, as well as many other senior experts with at Nine. So we've tapped into that every year to help, I guess, back up and help steer some of the trends. So on that, let's jump straight into it. Our first trend is full spectrum feels. As we develop as adults, we lose our sense of childlike wonder over time. The world seemingly becomes less magical. We live in a very rational, explained world. Our lives are quantified by data. Our decisions are increasingly influenced by algorithms. That, coupled with the fact of what everything is going on in the world, explains why we're seeking out escapism in the form of emotion-inducing experiences. And this is, it's not just reality TV and sporting events, it's many, many other things. The difference now is that there's a demand for escapism by consumers, for brands to do this. 65% of global consumers want brands to wow them with spectacular advertising, and 61% want brands to help them feel intense emotions, not just emotions, but intense emotions. And this all speaks to this emotional economy, which seems to be gaining quite a bit of momentum. There's a really good trend report out at the moment by Wunderman Thompson. It got released at the back end of last year, and it's called The Age of Enchantment. And it's all about engaging audiences and consumers with emotion. And we're actually commissioning a big piece of research which will land around July, August time this year. And it's all about influence around mood congruence and television and emotion, and how different genres can project different feelings and emotions, and how receptive we are when we're actually feeling different emotions versus stress versus contentment, etc., etc. So there's a lot going on in this space. In terms of how brands are responding, I really like this example on the left. This is IKEA in the United Arab Emirates, and they held up a merit relationships with its 2023 Counseling Couch campaign. In a nod to the strain put on couples by a trip to the furniture store, the retailer actually added QR codes to selected items and invited customers to book in for in-store couples therapy sessions to talk it all out. I think that's quite a nice play on the idea of emotion. Another aspect of it could be is this middle brand, which is Philadelphia, and they opened a multi-sensory dining experience called the Philadelphia Pop-Up. And it's a restaurant, and it's based on their brand platform. You don't just taste it, you feel it. And the restaurant invited guests to order dishes based on how they wanted to feel. So you had dishes entitled Allure, Curiosity, Spontaneity, and again, really sort of dialing up this idea of emotion, having a bit of fun with it, I guess. Okay, on to our second trend, which is simplifying a complex world. Consumers are really seeking help navigating what appears to be an increasingly complex world. 70% of Australians believe the world has become more complex, and an additional 67% believe that living in Australia is becoming more complex. Now, simplicity has always been important, whether brands do it or not. The simplest brands are the ones that put the simplicity at the heart of the consumer experience, and there's lots of research that is leaning towards this. We actually did a piece of research called the value equation last year, and it identified how simplicity and security will be the #1 drivers of value towards the end of the decade. And I know it's very easy for me to sit here and say simple brand experiences, but what ultimately consumers want is anything that helps cut through to make their lives and decision making easier. And by failing to provide simple experiences, brands are leaving an estimated 402 billion on the table. Now, Siegel and Gate have this thing called the Global Brand Simplicity Index. It's a report, and it's been running for the last 12 years. And it's identified that from wherever they shop or from the way they communicate, consumers are really putting a premium on brand experiences that are simple. Lidl here on the left was voted the world's simplest brand by Siegel and Gate, and by making shopping feel seamless and not a chore. By keeping ranges simple, using in-store space sensibly, Lidl helps customers to shop efficiently and exit with ease, making their lives simpler in the process. So I guess as a response to this as a brand, it could be infographics, it could be how-tos, informative content, anything that's sort of cutting through to making life a little bit simpler for consumers. Okay. Sonic boom. So music's role in advertising is not a new concept. Brands' affinity with music and sound has allowed them to weave their way into the cultural zeitgeist for decades. Whether it's that jingle that accompanies Woolies fresh food people, or simply saying the words, "Did someone say menu log?" These sounds instantly evoke potent images of these respective brands. Interestingly, sound contributes 8 times more than all other brand elements, including slogos, logos, colours, to a consumer's affinity to a brand. And in another insight we unlocked as part of this research, close to 3 in 4 Aussies say they connect better to advertisements that include a unique sound identity, such as a jingle or song. So Garnier in the US composed a hip hop track called Marcilla Rewind, and it was to go with the Marcilla cleansing water. It's a makeup removal product. And they basically created this track, which is obviously a well-produced track, and they gave it to all these influencers. And the influencers were using, like, removing the makeup with this product, with the backdrop to this track. And it actually garnered 4.3 billion views. It's pretty amazing. But it's not just about spending lots of money. And to reiterate what Russell Howcroft said on the previous slide, a few chords, a melody, a beat can work just as hard as a full feature song, providing it fits with a brand's identity. So we've empowered, we've got an audio specialist team, and they can create anything from a sonic trigger to a bespoke jingle. So if you are interested, please get in touch with either myself or Anthony, and we can certainly get you in touch with the right people we've empowered. But we've absolutely got the right team in place if you are interested in experimenting with sound as a new aspect of your brand's identity. Okay, this fourth trend is a little bit more serious. Traditional representations of masculinity across Western cultures, at least, seem to be at a bit of a crossroads. Our research told us that only 15% of Australians believe enough is being done to support young men in their social development, and only 20% of Australians believe men are represented positively by media and advertising. Now, in the absence of appropriate role models, you've got personalities such as Andrew Tate, who are quite controversial, and they're gaining huge followers of young men. At the same time, we're seeing increased rates of eating disorders and other mental health disorders, as well as poor academic performance, unfortunately, in some young men. Now, in response to this, Schick in the US commissioned a research study that found that 81% of men would prefer brands to celebrate them for who they are. And off the back of it, they launched a brand campaign that challenged the grooming industry's status quo with the debut of Be You, No One Else Can, and really celebrating men in all their different guises. Gillette, on the other hand, on the left of the slide, in India, created a series of ads that again challenged the stereotypes around gender roles and occupations. And they created this content series, and they had different episodes. One was called The Barbershop Girls, another one was called Man Enough Don't Cry. And they leveraged media outlets and actually held a press conference featuring some of these role models to really sort of kickstart this conversation in India. Okay, our fifth trend is reality check. So we are, in fact, living in an increasingly fake world. Meat grown from cells has been deemed safe to eat by Australia's food safety regulator in its first assessment of lab-grown meat. And as resources continue to diminish and supply chains fall under scrutiny, it's believed that lab-made will go from sterile to possibly responsible or even aspirational in the not too distant future. At the same time, the dupe economy continues to build momentum with copies and fakes of makeup or anything. And also AI-generated songs are trending on Spotify. And now we've got YouTube rolling out content warning systems for videos that contain convincingly realistic generative AI across its network. Now, there's two lines of thought for this trend. You know, marketers can embrace the boundless creative opportunities by blurring the lines between fact and fiction and what's real and what isn't. Or right at the extremes, the other side of this is to focus on transparency and trust and truth, authentication and validation. And these types of services will only gain more and more momentum in the not too distant future. So the brand in the middle is called TruePic. It's a US startup, and their mission is to prevent fraud, identity theft, misinformation, disinformation caused by generative, manipulated, or deepfake digital content. And what their technologies are able to do is provide a transparent understanding of how content, say, for example, how an article, how an original piece of content was created, who created it, and then it's also able to identify all the specific edits and changes and manipulation of that content that has occurred since the creation of it. So that's kind of one end of the spectrum. The other end, we've got eBay here tapping into sneakerheads' long-held affinity to reselling trainers. And they launched their 2023 Swap 'em Out pop-up store. It was an activation that invited fans of buying trainers and sneakers and pre-loved and worn trainers to swap and change them and trade trainers. But to boost products value, they offered a pre-validation service, which every product that was traded through this platform had eBay's official authenticity guarantee, obviously, which is obviously very important when you're trading things. You need to know how authentic they are. Okay, sixth trend, crisis commerce. So according to our Nines Consumer Pulse in December 2023, only half of Australians are feeling financially comfortable, and I suspect that's dropped a little bit. Whilst at the same time, 68% want brands to help them by reducing the prices of goods and services. Now, Carrie Elstubb, who's the director across 9.com.au, points out that with sky-high utility bills, the rising cost of groceries and interest rates at a 12-year high, brands truly need to prove to consumers that they understand, and more importantly, that they're listening. Now, this insight presents an opportunity for brands to demonstrate a bit of empathy during a time of economic uncertainty and potentially back that up with tangible help or support or utility in some way, which is what consumers are crying out for. Now, controversially, this brand on the left supporting. It's actually it's a British frozen fresh food grocer, and it's called Iceland. And basically, what they've done is they're offering consumers interest-free personal loans, and they've partnered with UK flexible credit provider Fair for You. Now, some loans are as small as £25, which is about $50, and they say that if people can't pay, they will be helped and not harassed. In the middle, we've got Skip the Dishes. This is a Canadian food delivery platform, and they developed the Inflation Cookbook. And what this is, it's an AI-assisted app that traps volatile grocery prices and generates recipes in response to real-time pricing data, which to me, I think is a genius idea. It's really sort of helping consumers, but it's also making the most of what they're able to get. Okay, our seventh trend is a long form renaissance, and this actually came out of the back of some research we did for Google at the back end of last year. They really wanted to understand Gen Z a little bit more, and they're actually coming to Nine for insights, which was quite interesting. What we did is we tapped into our pedestrian TV platform, and obviously that audience is predominantly Gen Z. And what we identified is that there's an element of fatigue with TikTok videos and Instagram reels, which is pushing younger audiences to more in-depth audio, video, and written content that actually provides a bit more depth and nuance around subjects that they find interesting. So there's this term sort of floating around when I was doing this research called the cozy web, and it marks a shift away from content that is less about going viral and instead creating slower, more intimate dwell times. And Sarah Michael, who I interviewed, she's one of the publishers at Pedestrian, made a really good point. She thinks marketers are missing a trick by characterizing audiences as having a short attention span, pointing to a shift in the consumption of longer form content across their platforms. And it talks, I mean, it's this idea that, you know, if you've only ever been fed short form content, you're not going to know any different, right? So it's this idea that we're opening these audiences up to a different type of content. And a really good example is Refinery 29, which is one of Pedestrian TV's brands. And they have a series called Money Diaries. And what it does is it's 1,000 words Q&A, so it's quite a long form piece, and essentially analyzes people's spending habits. And it also adds further insight into the interviewee's emotional relationship that they have with their finances. And now it's actually been published on the Sydney Morning Herald. And it interviews people from all kinds of backgrounds, financial situations, different demographics and ages. And it's a super interesting read. But again, it just speaks to how this sort of shift towards longer form. Now, on the right here, we've got a brand called Allbirds, and this is an American New Zealand eco footwear brand, and it's squarely targeted at Gen Z. And their slower approach to content comes in the form of a newspaper. And they actually created this with an agency called Earthwise. It's an egocentric media agency that's comprised of designers, scientists, and storytellers. And it features measured and positive perspectives on climate change, which is kind of interesting. The fact that they're going back into newspaper. Okay, number 8 is multidimensional athletes. 2024 marks a pivotal year for sport as we witness the Paris Summer Olympics and Paralympics, alongside many other great national and international sporting events. And as audiences continue to gravitate to live sport in droves, we are seeing the ongoing rise of sporting identities transcending the boundaries of the game. Now, athletes have always helped to set the cultural agenda, but these days they are being empowered to be creative, entrepreneurial, and influential well beyond the borders of the game. And media really has given these athletes a platform to talk, to give them the freedom to be creative and entertaining and artistic, and it's given them a platform to raise their voices. And you know, if you look at Naomi Osaka for a few years, talking about mental health, that kind of marked this sort of shift, I think, to looking at athletes outside of just them, just as athletes, I guess. And there's more, there's a lot more to their identity. So Budweiser in the US developed a more holistic view of sports stars in their Side Hustles mini-series. It was a mini docu-series, and it followed some high-profile sporting identities in the US. And it should have highlighted how they're building a legacy away from the pitch through the passion projects and business ventures. It was a super interesting series. And again, if you're a brand and you're looking to tap into sport as a potential direction, you know, maybe this could be a different way to look at these individuals, these very powerful sporting individuals. And another example on the right is McDonald's, our very own Macca's, and their ongoing relationship with NRL legend Sam Friday. And it saw the creation of Macca's NRL footy feed. And this content series explored athletes such as 3 times NRLW Premiership winner Millie Boyle. And they talked to her about her career, but also about her life well beyond the game. Super interesting series. Okay, this is our 9th and final trend, and this is creativity's next frontier, or artificial creativity. And it's again back to artificial intelligence, which we can't seem to escape it. And daily headlines about the disruptive potential of AI have captured the world's attention, sparking a curiosity that earned ChatGPT 1 million users in just 5 days. That was the fastest uptake ever of any technology. Now, until recently, technology has been a tool to complete repetitive tasks, but now it's actually become a co-pilot. It's actually a teammate, and suddenly everyone can now create reasonable quality images, language, sound, or video. And whilst 87% of Aussies are concerned about the rate at which AI is evolving and the need for governance around it, 63% aged 18 to 39 say they have used the technology. Now, Coca-Cola in the US invited fans to imagine what the future tastes and feels like with this limited edition drink, and they created it through the use of AI. Coca-Cola Y3000 Zero Sugar was co-created with human and artificial intelligence. And what they did is they leveraged the fans of the brand and their perspectives from across the world and sort of combined that and layered that with insights from AI, and it helped to identify some trends, and which is essentially where they landed on this drink. Now in the middle, we've got a brand called Make. And this is a virtual AI music studio, and it's for amateurs. And it combines sound engineering, composing, mixing in one simple app. And it's already has a number of music creators signed up to record labels, which is really good. It's democratizing the music industry. And what Make wants to do is help people easily produce, own, and share music so that they can basically create music with their phones. So users through this app can upload beats, vocals, add a visual, and then post their creation. Super, super interesting space that it's all shifting into. Now, that's it for today. That's all the trends. I'm just quickly flashing up some of our other research. If there's anything up there that you're kind of interested in, you'd like a future session, please just reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to. But thanks for your time today. And it was a relatively short session. I'm conscious you guys are all very busy, but yeah, please reach out if you want anything you want to see. If you want a copy of the presentation, we've got a longer, much in-depth version of it. It's all written up, so I can send that to you. If you want the data or anything, please just shout out. But thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you, Mogo. Thank you, Nine, for your support of the independent sector. Appreciate it. Thank you, members, for tuning in. It's a short week. Have a good week. We'll see everyone next week. Any questions we can circulate to the guys, and also we'll put the copy of the presentation or the video on the closed LinkedIn group this afternoon. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.